Hi, I'm Emma, 18 years old. Do you remember discussing your first period with girls and how awkward it seemed to you? Now imagine that you are 18 and these days haven't even started yet. Everyone I knew already felt like real women, and I just envied them. Watch this video to the end and find out what the consequences of stopping puberty are. It's scary to think about how one problem can torment you every day, and you don't know what to do with it. I always felt inferior among other girls. I had two best friends, Stacy and Debbie, who we hung out with all the time. We often spent the night at each other's houses and could chat until morning. We went to Stacy's once. We chatted, played around, and finally switched to pillow fights. Debbie jumped out of bed, and we noticed a red spot on her pants. I was scared and screamed that Debbie was hurt, but the girls just laughed at me. Stacy gave Debbie some white thing, and she came back a few minutes later. We were 12 years old, and it turned out that the girls had already had their periods. My friends thought I was just joking about the injury, and they didn't even realize that my days hadn't started yet. But I told them in confidence that I didn't have them yet. They started cheering me on. They said that periods caused a lot of inconvenience. There were wild pains from which they climbed on the wall. Their moods worsened, and all their clothes got dirty with blood. Did you have any problems with your period? I should have been glad to be spared the monthly difficulties so far, but that didn't make it any easier. We were growing up. We were already 14. I still didn't have my periods. I noticed that my friends began to change their appearance. They became more feminine. They grew breasts. They began to wear bright makeup and dress like grown-up girls. The girls often discussed their physiological changes, and once I could not stand it and decided to take an extreme measure. I deliberately stained my jeans with red paint and sat down at my desk. After class, I got up and complained to Stacy about a terrible pain in my stomach. Stacy said sympathetically that she understood me, and then looked at the back of my jeans, and seeing a red spot on them, advised me to run to the bathroom as soon as possible. After school, all the girls in the class congratulated me, but I was not at ease because I cheated them. I didn't have any periods. When I got home, I kept lying. My mother was very happy when she heard about my first period, even teared up a little that I was already so big. At the weekend, she threw a cool party in honor of such an event. I called all my girlfriends. We had fun till we dropped, but when everyone left, I felt very ashamed and sad. I had no reason to be happy. Those days never came. I was already 16. One day, something fell out of Debbie's purse in the school locker room. I picked it up and handed it to Debbie, asking what this strange cotton was. For some reason, she was very surprised by my question, and then began to whisper to Stacy. The next day at school, I had the feeling that someone was looking at my back all day. Suddenly, after the lesson, Debbie ran up to me from behind and with a confused look, began to take me to the toilet. We quickly flew in, and Debbie showed me my pants. There was a red spot. I couldn't believe my eyes. At last, this day came, and I became a woman. I suddenly felt light, and all the excitement went out of my head. I didn't even care that the whole school was staring at me. Hope was already glinting in my eyes, but then Debbie laughed out loud and said it was a prank in retaliation for lying to them. They figured out I didn't have my period when I picked up a tampon from the floor and handed it to Stacy, not realizing what it was. After that awful day, a photo of my ass with a red stain on my jeans went all over the school. Everyone joked at me, called me names on the internet, and even printed this photo on posters. Have you ever been bullied at school? Then you understand me. I stopped talking to my friends. I was looking forward to finishing school. Then I went to college. I was 18 and still had no periods. I started studying the literature on women's health to find out what was wrong with me. I met Mike in college. He too was different. His eyes were different colors. We quickly became close and started dating. I shared my problem with Mike, and he said that the school made fun of him too, and that he liked me like this. But I was better to see a doctor. I was afraid to learn something terrible from the doctors and delayed the examination. I knew that Mike wanted a family and children, and we dreamed of getting married and having our own home. One day, I felt a terrible pain in my stomach during a lecture. I ran to the bathroom, but it was just plain indigestion. Depressed, I returned from college and was met with an angry look from my mother. I didn't understand what had happened. It turned out that my mother was cleaning my room and found a whole bag of pads that I'd asked her to buy but did not use. My mother realized that I had been lying about my periods all along. I started crying and ran out of the room. My mother came to me and said we needed to have a serious conversation. I was afraid that she would scold me even more. And she hugged me and admitted that she had had the same problem. And she knew how I felt right now. It had passed down to me, but I was not a verdict. My mother said I would need to undergo treatment and everything would be fine. When I heard her story, I was glad that I had hope. We went to see the doctor. He asked me about my periods, and I said I didn't have it. There was silence. After passing tests and procedures, I was told what I was most afraid to hear. Since I was a child, I didn't have one ovary, so my periods were delayed, and the chance of getting pregnant was reduced to 0. At that moment, everything collapsed for me. I couldn't believe that I wouldn't have children, walk with them, hold their little hands. My mother still didn't give up hope. She signed me up for special therapy. I received it for a couple of months. My period never came, so I refused from it. I told Mike everything, and he started to calm me down. I didn't want to ruin his dreams of a family, so I suggested we break up so he could find a normal girlfriend. Mike tried to convince me that he loved me and was ready to live with me for the rest of my life. Even without children, we spent an unforgettable night together, but it was our last. I said I didn't want a relationship anymore, and I'd rather be alone. Mike left, although he really wanted to stay, and we stopped talking. A couple of months passed. I missed Mike, sometimes looking at his page in social networks, and one day there was a new photo of him with a very beautiful girl. I was devastated by the news. I was not feeling very well and began to feel sick. I threw up for a week. At first, I thought it was just nerves. Then, I decided to take a pregnancy test, just for fun. I didn't think I was pregnant. I just had to make sure. The test was positive. I couldn't believe it. I lay down on the bed and suddenly saw brownish dots on it, like old bloodstains. How had I not noticed them before? These were the marks from my period. They were so sparse that I probably didn't notice. And it had probably happened a couple of months ago. I immediately broke the news to my mother. She was happy that I had succeeded, despite the doctor's misgivings. The therapy did help. I really wanted to share this with Mike, but he had a new life and a new girlfriend. But still, on my mother's advice, I decided to call him, and he offered to meet. At the meeting, I said I was pregnant with his child, but I understood that he had another one. I saw her photo, and I did not pretend to anything. And Mike said it was his cousin. He still loved me, and he was happy to be a dad, We got married in a month, and we're going to have a girl. I am glad that my health problem has been resolved. Have you ever inherited a disease? If you like this story, then like it and subscribe to the channel. Take care of your health and never hide the truth from your loved ones.
Hi, I'm Patricia and I'm 13. Have you ever lied to your parents? I mean, big time? I had to lie to my dad, covering up for my mom's lies. Watch this till the end to learn what kind of secrets your closest friends and family can keep. It all started with me coming back from school earlier than usual. I heard a man laughing inside of my house. But as soon as I entered the house, the guy I didn't know ran out, hastily putting on shoes and holding a jacket. I didn't even get a good look at his face. I went inside to see my mom. I was looking scared next to the table. She was jittery and kept looking from side to side, to the window, to the table, at me, at the door. She said the man was her old school friend, and he dropped by on a visit to just reminisce about the good old days. She asked me not to tell Dad because he worked so much and needed no extra causes for worry or stress. She looked at me fixedly as if waiting for an answer. My throat suddenly went dry and I nodded. Dad works as a sales director. His company is only rising up, so he works a lot and is often away on business trips. I only see him at breakfast in the morning, and not even every day. But even during this short time, he's always full of love and smiles. In my own room, I thought about lying to my dad. Why would Mom want to hide her friend's visit? I felt like I should tell Dad, but I just couldn't. I kept Mom's secret. 1 week went by, then another. I didn't see that guy again, but Mom started going shopping more often. I saw the same guy at her house again 1 month later. Mom said he just came by to bring some childhood photos, but they were just empty takeout boxes. And that kind of told me something different. I was getting increasingly anxious, keeping an eye on things, fighting my internal feelings. Mom was lying, and I didn't know why. Meanwhile, the man said his goodbyes and hurried outside. As if she knew what was on my mind, my mom said, "I told Dad I'll be having a friend over today." My hand, with my phone, clutched firmly inside, dropped. It looked like the problem had resolved itself, except it looked like there wasn't a real problem. After that, I came across the stranger a few more times. I never once tried to talk to him, even though he tried to talk to me, saying hi and, "Hey, how are you?" One day Dad said that he'd be spending the night at work. But he didn't, and he came home to see Mom with that man, all cozy with a bottle of wine. But instead of throwing a fit, he warmly greeted the guy. His name was Frank, and Dad joined them. It was late, and I should have been in bed, but I missed Dad and went to the kitchen. Dad was glad to see me and looked happy. Everything was probably under control. It was late, and Frank was leaving. He said that he'd enjoyed the lovely evening with us and had to go. Dad insisted on Frank spending the night because why should he spend money on a hotel? But Frank said, "I live across the street." Dad looked confused. I caught this kind of tension. Mom had introduced Frank as a friend from another state who visited so often because they couldn't see each other for a long time. And Dad seemed okay with that. But now Frank was backing off towards the door when Dad grabbed him by the neck. I had never seen him so angry. I hid in the kitchen. Dad was threatening Frank, who tried to break free and yelled to Mom that she'd let him on. Dad even got more mad, putting himself between Mom and Frank. Mom was standing pale as a ghost, her back to the kitchen counter. And then I think Frank realized Dad wasn't letting go, started blaming Mom for being the one who initiated all of it. He said she was the one saying she was divorcing and wanted Frank to take her and her daughter, me, to another city so that everyone could live the life they wanted. Dad was in shock. I collapsed in a heap on the floor. I started to cry. This couldn't be. Mom couldn't have said those things. Or could she? Is that why Frank tried to talk to me all the time? My head was spinning and I only heard pieces of the conversation without getting all of it. I woke up to see my mom hugging me and whispering all these nice things to me. the adults started talking behind closed doors, which I didn't like, and I had a feeling that things wouldn't be the same ever again. I sat all tensed up and waiting for this all to end. When things went as far as me having to pick which parent to live with after the divorce, without even thinking about it, I picked Dad. It hurt a lot. I didn't want to lose any of my parents, and I asked Dad to let me see Mom as much as possible. He said that he'd do everything to make me happy. I see Mom almost every day, and she promised to talk to me about this when I'm a little bit older. Has your life ever changed drastically because of your parents' decisions? Share your stories in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Please like this video to let YouTube show it to more people. I wish you and your families happiness. See you!
Hi, I'm Dina. I'm 16. Have you ever felt your heart stop working? How it breaks down and just stops? My life almost ended in an instant. And if it weren't for one person, I wouldn't be telling you my story right now. Watch the rest of this story and you'll find out what made my heart beat again. I was just a normal teenager. I hung out with friends, went to the movies, watched stand-up shows, and tried to write jokes. And my life would have been perfect if someone had laughed at my jokes and my parents weren't so serious. One day, I came home from school, ate, and went to my room to watch a new episode of stand-up. I got so carried away that I forgot to wash the dishes and walk our dog Hutch. Hutch made a puddle that my mother stepped in when she came home from work. And then it turned out that there wasn't a single clean plate in the kitchen. My mother said that I was an ungrateful daughter and blah, blah, blah. And I was just carried away and forgot about my household chores. It could happen. I'm a teenager with a rich inner world. Do your parents demand a lot from you too? My mother forbade me anything related to entertainment. I didn't want her to be mad at me for something, so I cleaned the kitchen, took Hutch for a walk, and got ready for bed. But then, I got a call from my friend Scott. He invited me to a party. I couldn't miss it. There was no point in asking my mother for permission, so I decided to sneak out and come back in the morning. I climbed over the window, and within 10 minutes, I was testing my new jokes on my friends. We talked and danced a lot. I drank a couple of cocktails, and for some reason, I immediately got drunk. My vision blurred, and my head began to spin. I fell on the knees of the guy who was sitting next to me and started to choke. Then, my friends ran up, started waving something, and then it was dark. I woke up in a hospital bed. There were a lot of pipes and wires around me, connected to huge beeping boxes. My doctors and my parents came to see me. Mom and Dad looked worried. Did I drink too much yesterday? I wanted to get back from the party unnoticed, but apparently it didn't work out. I decided to defuse the situation and said that last night's party was closed, and I had no right to tell anyone about it. All three of them looked at me sternly. They were clearly not up to my jokes. My parents sat down next to my bed, and my mother told me that it was bad for me to worry right now. I asked my parents to explain what it was. My mother began to sob, and my father tried to calm her down. The doctor calmly said that I had a heart attack yesterday. I was barely revived, and I was diagnosed with a heart defect. I didn't know what it was, but it sounded grim. I asked if I could live with it. The doctor said I could, but without heart surgery, my life would be short. After these words, I realized that my life would now change. I was in the hospital for about a week. Different doctors came to me all the time, asking me something, measuring something. There was a guy in the next room, Justin. He was also 16. I needed a bit of company, so I went to meet him. Justin was great. He also loved stand-up shows. Justin, like me, was diagnosed with a heart defect and had a checkup before his operation. He tried to cheer me up. We were planning to meet and watch some fresh stand-up when it was all over. On the day I was discharged, he had heart surgery. We exchanged phone numbers and agreed to stay in touch. I gave him my notebook with jokes. I wanted him to smile when he thought of me. In response, Justin took off his watch and said that I needed it more than him. I was supposed to go through the same heart surgery as him in about a month. It was a smartwatch with heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature, and sleep time. It helped Justin's doctor monitor his heart condition and general health before the operation. I was happy with the gift and thanked Justin. What do your friends give you most often? When I was packing my things, a woman came into my room. I thought she was another employee of the clinic. She asked me about my health, my relationship with my parents. I ironically blurted out that my folks always made me work around the house when I just wanted to rest. And if I had it my way, I would live separately. The woman thanked me and left, and I went home. I was hoping everything would be the same at home. A heart defect and a month later, the operation. Nothing new, but life goes on. My parents thought otherwise. My teenage life was over. I was treated like a sick old lady. I wasn't allowed to leave the house, worry, eat fat, and watch the shows all night. It was torture. The doctor advised my parents to buy me a smartwatch, but I said that I already had one. Justin's gift was so precious to me, and I didn't want to take it off. I used the watch to measure my pulse and blood pressure and send the data to the doctor. The gadget became an important part of my daily life and reminded me of a good friend I would see soon. Almost as soon as I got back from the hospital, I tried calling Justin, but he didn't answer. I called him every day, but no one answered. And then I got a call from Scott, who asked me to go out. I was just tired of being isolated and I needed to communicate. This time, I asked my parents for permission. My mother was absolutely against it, and my father locked me in my room. I started pounding on the locked door with my hands and feet and felt my heart pounding, but I didn't care. My folks only cared about my pulse and sleep. Through the door, my mother tearfully asked me to calm down and measure my heartbeat. This request made me angry, and I took off my watch and threw it on the floor with all my might. I was sick of these measurements and reports. I just wanted to live a normal life. I climbed through the window and escaped, but I didn't go to Scott's. I spent the night in a shed in the back of our house. I was thinking about how to live my life. I called Justin many times, but he didn't answer. I really missed the friendly support. Morning came and I returned home. I decided to stop fighting with my parents and talk to them calmly. My parents were sitting in the living room with the strange woman who had come to see me in the hospital. What did she want? She introduced herself as a social worker and asked why I didn't spend the night at home and how my parents were treating me at the moment. I didn't think it would go this far. My words in the hospital about slavery were just ironic. At that moment, I understood that the fate of my family depended on my answer, and I didn't want to cause any problems for my parents. I jokingly said that I decided to do some downshifting and spent the night in the barn, but forgot to warn my mother. We were doing well, and my parents only forced me to do two things: brush my teeth and wash my hands. The woman listened to me, then took my parents aside, said something to them, and then she left. My mother ran to me in tears and hugged me as if she hadn't seen me in years. She and Dad apologized for going too far. While we were all hugging and kissing, my phone rang. I was hoping it was Justin, but it was a woman's voice, and she identified herself as Justin's sister, Annie. I asked where Justin was. There was a silence in response, and then she began to cry and said that Justin was gone. Startled, I dropped the phone, looked at my hand, and remembered his watch. I had thrown it on the floor. In tears, I ran into the room and picked them up. They were still working. I took my pulse. It was off the scale. I didn't believe that was the last time I'd see Justin. Justin couldn't stand the heart surgery. That's why I couldn't reach him. I was in so much pain. After that, I couldn't help but listen to my mother, because if I didn't follow the doctor's instructions, I would betray Justin himself. I kept taking measurements with my watch, remembering him every time. After all, for me, it was not just a watch. It was the mobile heart of a friend who was no longer around. He gave it to me as a keepsake, and I'll keep it safe as I promised. A month later, I had an operation, and it was successful. I continue to wear Justin's watch and dedicate all my new jokes to him, even though no one knows it. If this story reminds you of something important, please like and subscribe to the channel. Take care of yourself and your loved ones.
Hello everyone, I'm Cho, and I'm 16 years old. Are you afraid of people on the street? Someone will say, dear, if you are afraid of everyone, you will stop going out on the street. And my answer is, watch this video to the end and find out how one trip with a stranger in an elevator ended for me. I've lived in Koreatown all of my life. Do not think that this is some kind of a ghetto. People of all various nationalities also live there. It's just that in our city, all South Koreans, starting with those who came many generations ago, live in the same area. This often leads to problems, but as for me, I absolutely like this state of things. Once, I went into a dark entrance with a white guy, and he started harassing me, and I was little. I've been told to be careful. I started yelling for help. In other places, no one would have helped me at all, but not here. My neighbors heard me and did not let the scoundrel get away with it. I loved all these people even more, but because of this incident, I became terribly nervous and afraid. Now imagine what happened to me when a strange white guy got into the same elevator with me. Oh my God, what terrible eyes he had. And his smile. Damn, this smile was almost like Joker's. He also moved in a strange way. I couldn't figure out what it was, but his movements made me tense for some reason. Then the elevator stopped. The lights went out, the movement stopped, and I was ready to scream. Have you ever felt trapped? I was locked in the most literal sense, and the devil knows with whom. This is embarrassing, huh? The guy asked. Don't be afraid of me. This, of course, was very reassuring. I began furiously to press the call button. A woman answered me and said that the workers would be here in 15 minutes. 15 minutes? He could kill me in that time. Well, I thought, okay, maybe I'll get lucky. I took out my phone to light it up, turned on the flashlight, and he was standing right next to me. I screamed, only then did he recoil. We went silent for a while, and then he said, you know, you smell nice. Was that normal? I sidled to the door so that I could be the first to get out as soon as it was opened. And he was still smiling and staring at where I'd been standing. And then the elevator jerked. My heart just leapt into my throat, and I dropped my phone. I started to search on the floor and hear the voice of my maniac. Have you lost this? I stood up and demanded that he give the phone back, and I held out my hand, and in the second one, I clutched the keys in my pocket, almost ready to hit. He gave me the phone, but it didn't turn on. No more light. I started to breathe as if I was about to give birth, and he was at it again. What, you don't like the dark? He said. I like it. I'm more used to it. And he laughed, damn it. And then I felt a hand on my arm. How did he realize where I was standing? I couldn't see further than my own nose. By breathing? By smell? And then he muttered, don't be afraid. I'm with you. Damn, I'm afraid of you, maniac. Here, he brought his face close to mine and exhaled. Or maybe you and me. And then the door opened. I shoved him away and ran as fast as I could. I only turned around once to see him hanging around on the landing with that weird smile of his, arms outstretched like a zombie as if sniffling. Rough. I told my father right away, and he took it very seriously. did a strange guy come up to you? Call me immediately if he shows up again, he said. I swore to my dad, but I really might not even have done it. I met this weirdo at the weekend when the whole family went for a walk in the alley. He was just walking around with that creepy smile, and I recognized him right away. Look, there he is. That one, my father asked, and was about to move toward him with clear intentions. And my mother stopped him. Joe, don't you see? He's blind. Dad and I took a closer look at the guy. In fact, the walking stick, which I took to be just a stylish accessory, was guiding his way, and he followed it carefully. Then I understood and was ashamed. I went crazy already, got scared of a blind boy. Well, he spoke strangely, but he didn't do anything wrong to me. This was awkward. Have you ever accused a perfectly innocent person of something? After this, you really don't want to meet face to face. The next time I ran into him in the elevator was just 2 days later. I didn't think his smile was creepy anymore. Well, a little bit. We were silent for a moment, and then he said, I recognized you by your perfume. I blushed and mumbled that I was sorry, that I had run away, that I was afraid of elevators and strangers in elevators. He offered to fix it with a walk. I agreed. During our conversation, I learned a lot about him. His name was James, and he inherited the apartment in our house from his uncle. James' parents died, and he now lived with his aunts, who were technically his guardians. I remembered the people on the 5th floor. Yes, dear Uncle Pon had recently been buried, and there were 3 angry women left behind. His wife, sister, and a mother. Terribly unpleasant ladies. I always say exactly what I think, but James wasn't offended. He said he couldn't stand them either and had just started going out without them, whereas they forbade him anything at all, including looking for a job. James and I met for another walk, and then another, and more. One day, I ran into one of his aunts in the elevator. Word for word, I told her that James was not a child to be so patronized and that she and her relatives should give him some freedom. What did she say? A big, fat, racist profanity. I didn't say anything to this disgusting woman, but I was determined that James should be saved from this terrible family. So I called him in the evening when he was usually at home and barely managed to persuade him to go for a walk without his aunts knowing. He was very nervous and worried that they would be angry, but I didn't listen to him. I took him to the Clover Honey, my favorite place in town. Technically, it was a bar, but there was a free stage, almost always few people, and musical instruments were freely available. I helped James play the marimba for the first time, the maracas, and I knocked on the jango myself. James was so happy. He said that he had wanted to buy a piano, but at first his family had no money, and then, after his uncle died, his aunts wouldn't let him use his inheritance. What? I was terribly surprised by what James said to me. And he went on. Yes, he was the heir to this money, and he was 18 years old, but his aunts were technically guardians of the invalid, and therefore they were responsible for his spending. So he didn't go to bars because he couldn't pay for himself. I did not waste time and turned to a neighbor who worked as a lawyer. We prefer to solve everything through friends, you know. I explained the situation to her, and she asked me to introduce her to James so that she could look at all his documents. They were stored in his aunt's closets, and there was no easy way to get there. So I went to James's house, made a scene, and distracted these crazy, noisy women while James grabbed all the documents he could get. I was forbidden to enter the house at all, but this did not bother me at all. I was glad that our little ruse had succeeded. A neighbor told us that if James could prove his independence, then he would not need any guardians at all. James filed a lawsuit, and our neighbors started representing him. And a few weeks later, I was called to court. It turned out that his aunts blamed everything on me, saying that I slept with their boy, where? In the elevator, made a baby, and now I wanted my bastard to inherit everything by tricking a poor invalid. I went to the gynecologist and he confirmed that I was a virgin. I wouldn't let those scumbags open their mouths at me. The trial was successful. James was given the right to manage his own money. He has moved to another apartment on the ground floor so he doesn't have to use the elevator. But we still see each other, walk down the alley, and play the marimba at the Clover Honey. What would you do if you were stuck in an elevator with a creepy stranger? Or maybe you're the creepy stranger that people can get stuck with? Tell us in the comments and subscribe to our channel.
Hi, I'm Karina, and I'm 13 years old. Have you ever thought that you lived the tough life? That you don't deserve such trials and tribulations? That you have too much going on right now? I know that. Watch this video to the end and find out how I had to pretend to be mute to survive. I grew up in the ghetto. Our district had no funding. The government took all the money for itself, and the ordinary people lived slightly worse than poor. For example, my family was supported by alms. I've known since I was 3 what it was like to walk with my hand outstretched. Even as a child, I was given a legend. I was passed off as a mute to arouse people's pity. Naturally, it worked. At first, I was shy about pretending, but then I got used to it. One day, a guy on the street noticed me. He tried to communicate with me by gestures. I didn't understand what he wanted from me. Could he be ill? But I couldn't leave my workplace. In the end, he just wrote a note and left. I read it in the evening. Hi, my name is Hugh. My brother is an activist for the rights of the poor. Do you want me to introduce you to him? Would you talk to someone who promised to get you out of trouble? There are too many crooks in this world to be trusted, I know that. But on the other hand, sometimes you want to believe in the best, right? I threw the paper away and tried not to think about it again. Once we had journalists come to the ghetto, my mother hoped that they would help us crawl out of this hole and gave a big interview. And then the episode with us was simply cut out and they made it look like there were no beggars in our city at all. Therefore, I did not believe in such activists. Everyone only cares about themselves. However, Hugh appeared the next day, and the next, and the next. He talked to me, asked if I knew sign language, tried to teach me. He said that his brother couldn't do it right now, that I would have to wait a little longer, and then he would come with his entire film crew. I didn't care about his brother, but it was the first time I had a friend from outside the ghetto who cared about me. I wrote to him on a piece of paper that my family was very poor, that our neighborhood was poor and dangerous, that I never went to school because we simply did not have the opportunity. Hugh brought food and candy, and so, thanks to him, I first learned the taste of chocolate. It was just like, I don't have the words. I ate it all by myself without sharing it with my sister. I liked talking to Hugh, mostly because of the food, yes, I won't lie, but not only that. And I had no idea that he remembered his promise. The next day, when I was supposed to go to work, I saw a TV van on the street. My mother and Gertrude followed me out. They also wanted to watch the shooting. I saw Hugh among the camera crew. He also noticed me, was happy, and brought a young man to us. "This is my brother," said Hugh. "Please tell him how you live." Would you lie to get help? Would you cheat for money? I had been lying all my life, and I had already taught myself that this was normal, but now I was as shy as I had been as a kid. Was I afraid of the cameras? Who knew? In short, I was ready to sink through the ground. Then my mother came forward and began to talk about our hard life, about the lack of money, about the fact that we did not go to school, and about the fact that her eldest daughter, me, was mute. I wanted to stop her, but I just couldn't bring myself to speak. After the group left, I asked my mother why she did it because she, like me, did not believe in television. "Well, we must hope for the best," she told me. And this time, she was not mistaken. The report was shown, though not on TV, but somewhere on the internet. It became very popular, so much so that I was even recognized on the street. A charity account was opened in the name of our family, and we even had money. My mother was happy, and I was terrified. I felt even more ashamed than when I collected alms as a child. I suddenly realized clearly that I was deceiving people and that because of this deception, we were taking money from them. And I would have to keep pretending that I was not talking, maybe even for the rest of my life. I just didn't know what to do. Tell the truth? But we had only just had the opportunity to eat our fill and even buy clothes. I couldn't deprive my mother and Gertrude of the opportunity to live a normal life. But I would give myself away one day, and then what? I decided to take a terrible, desperate step. I decided that I needed to stop lying and at the same time help my family preserve their prosperity. I should have made myself truly mute. But I couldn't. Not because I didn't make up my mind, no. In fact, I was already so depressed that I didn't doubt my decision at all. My mother appeared in the bathroom and started yelling at me. "What are you doing? Stop!" And she snatched the scissors from me. I burst into tears. She tried to calm me down and I ran away from home. To walk, to exhale, to calm down, to make a decision. This helped a little. I eventually came to the conclusion that I had made a fool of myself and I should just wait for the hype to pass. They wouldn't be hurting us all the time, would they? People's attention quickly fades and it was just necessary to buy time. Calming down, I came home and saw a crowd in front of the entrance. Some men in uniform, thank the gods not a police uniform, were knocking on the door. Then they saw me, grabbed me, tried to drag me to the car, trying to calm me down along the way. This, on the contrary, only scared me. I broke away and ran around the back of the house to get in through the window. At home, I met Gertrude crying. "What happened?" Gertrude, sobbing, told me everything. She was very scared when there was a scandal between my mother and me. Unfortunately, Hugh was not far away. She ran to him for some reason, thinking that I would hide with him. She told him about my fight with my mother. And Hugh... oh, he thought that my mother was using me and tormenting me. Damn. I got mad at my sister and yelled, "Who asked you to do this?" Gertrude started crying even more, and I was wondering what to do. Hugh brought in social services, and now everyone thought that Mom was a family tyrant. Crowds of journalists would flow. Maybe the police would arrive. It had to come, since the daughter almost hurt herself because of her mother. Oh gods, why did this happen? I didn't mean to. Okay, there was no use crying over spilt milk. There was only one way out of the situation, and I had to decide on it. I called Hugh's number from my mother's phone. Yes, I called, not texted. I decided to put an end to this. To say that Hugh was startled was to say nothing. I apologized and asked if I could meet him and talk to him. He agreed. He also brought his brother to the meeting. I let them in through the window and told them the truth. Finally, I said that my mother never made me feel bad. She asked me to lie just so we could survive. Hugh was silent all this time, and I couldn't even look in his direction. I was very ashamed of lying to him. But his brother didn't seem to be offended at all. He just said that we should think about how to make the story public so that we didn't look like crooks. Hugh didn't say anything, or even say goodbye when they left our house. I wasn't surprised. I understood his feeling too well, and it only hurt me to lose such a friend. My mother wasn't arrested. Hugh's brother created another film about our family. It was very difficult to persuade my mother to tell the truth. She was still very afraid of journalists and did not believe that we could be helped selflessly, not out of pity for a disabled child. The film was released with the title Karina's Lie.
The documentary story about a girl who lied to other people to save her family became even more popular than the previous film, and for some reason, we even began to get alms even more than before. However, I read various comments on the internet where we were called scammers. Well, I understood why they thought so. After the premiere, Hugh suddenly met me. We took a long walk down our poor trash alley and talked. He admitted that he was offended with me, but now he understood why I did it. All he asked was that I never did it again. And I agreed with him. I realized that I actually had a voice. Instead of taking it away from me, adjusting to an unfair life, I can use it and bring the truth to people. But it's also important to have fun, isn't it? So subscribe to our channel. Or maybe you have interesting true stories yourself? Well, we will be happy to hear them.